Most of my videos where I'm mixing and stuff, I tend to use Pro Tools, but I actually am a huge fan of Ableton Live. And I thought today I would show you how I work with effects in Ableton Live, one of the ways I go about actually putting them on instruments, and just having a little bit of fun. Check it out. So most people know how you normally add an effect in Ableton. The standard way to do it is you add an insert return track like this. Then you come over here, get your plugin, drop it on there. I'm going to use a gated sound here. So you got your plugin there. You go to your snare track, and since I'm on insert return C, I turn up send C. Well, that works great for most situations where you got a lot of tracks that you want to send to the same reverb. And sometimes I just end up with too many insert returns. So I'm over here in a mix, and I've got so many insert return sends that I'm sitting here counting. I just want to simplify things. So there's another way to add an effect to a single track that I really like. Let me show you. All right, I'm going to go back to my snare drum, and I'm going to go here to my effects rack and grab an EQ8 and put it next on my channel strip for the snare drum. Now, I normally use an EQ for this thing I'm about to show you. You can actually do this with almost any kind of plugin, but I'm going to be EQing this anyway, so this is where I start. Now, here's what you do. You click on the plugin, and you either do this, you either right-click and go to Group, or you can click on the plugin and do Command-G. Does the same thing. Now, I have no idea why they call this Group. I think of Group as something completely different, but it's Ableton, which is kind of weird. So after you do this, you see down here, you got a couple little buttons. There's this little menu button right here, and it brings up this effects rack thing, which is really cool. So then I go over here and I grab Valhalla Vintage Verb, which I'm going to use on here. Now, what's happened is it's added the reverb onto kind of like its own little mixer in the channel right here. And you can actually rename it. Normally I'll go here and I'll go, verb. So now I've got the reverb on the same track as the snare drum, but it's not like a regular insert. Like it's not like in Pro Tools where you put it on the insert channel. It's actually its own channel within the channel. It's kind of weird. And so now if I just solo up the snare drum, there it is. I can turn it off. I can adjust the volume of it. And of course, I've got my mix set on 100% here. You can also pan the effect. Also solo. Now that allows me to have the reverb on just this one snare track. And if I turn the track up and down, everything moves together. But I can do some other things, which is normally what I do. Normally on a reverb, I'll add a little bit of saturation. I go here and I put it next to, just to the right of the reverb plugin here, not over here, but right here. Whoops, there we go. So now I got a little saturation on the snare drum reverb. Just a bit. And then I usually like to filter the reverb. So I'll put a little filter at the end here. So I wanted this a little bit darker. So now off. On. Now, the reason I like doing it this way is, as I said, it just kind of cleans up the mixer a little bit. But also, when I'm working on a sound, I don't have to go down here to the insert return section, and it's just right here on the snare track. You can add other chains. I can actually add on a delay. Gonna make it totally wet right here. Get rid of the dry. I usually get rid of the center channel here. So now that you've got your effects rack set up, let's say you want to affect all of that together, all of the effects, everything in that rack, and you want to put some sort of effect like a EQ or compressor post the effect rack. You do it like this. Come over here, grab a compressor, and you put it down here after the rack, after this line right here. and then it'll affect the whole effect rack together. Check it out. Cool. And man, you can keep layering and layering and adding more effects. You can even add another effects rack. And I'll show you later in this video where it actually is done. Like, you'd be surprised how far you can take this thing. But one of the things I like about this is that unlike Pro Tools, where all the effects are serial. When you put an insert on a track in Pro Tools, it's all serial. And even if you have a mix knob on the plugin, it's not the same as running them as parallel. Because here you can either add effects in a serial mode or a parallel mode. Here's another place where I use this method on a synthesizer. Check it out. Pretty cool, but that's not what I started with. Let me take you backwards and show you how I built that sound out. So here's what I started with. That's the original sound. As you can see, I've got a little bit of a high-pass filter on here. I ended up adding a utility plugin here because I wanted to bring up certain parts of the note, but it just wasn't really standing out in the mix much, so I did this. I started by right-clicking on the EQ and choosing Group. Then I open up the little menu thing here. I came over here and I added a saturator. Gives me this other channel. Then I added an EQ after the saturator on that same channel. And then a compressor. The saturator can really make things pop. There it is with it. And without it, just kind of gives it a little excitement. Then I wanted to filter it a little bit more. And then I thought, oh, I just need a little more attack, a little more excitement. So I added some compression. And then I basically just duplicated the utility plugin from the standard dry channel that I had just to kind of get that again. Now, it was cool. I'll put it back in the mix. It still wasn't getting me excited, so I thought, well, let me push it a little further. So I did this. What I did is I duplicated this channel that I had and made a copy of it. And that's one of the things I like about this process here. It allows me to try out a bunch of different versions of this thing and audition them easily by turning them off and on. It would be hard to do this through an insert return track, experimenting with a bunch of reverbs in different chains and stuff like that. So here's what I did. So as you can see right here, these first three plugins are the same as the last channel. What I added on was this Valhalla Supermassive, which is the bomb. And you guys should get this plugin. I assure you, you won't regret it. Now, as you can see, I've got my mix here 100%. So you're only hearing the reverb on this thing. It's cool, but it might be a little too spaced out. So let's bring in the previous channel along with it. Okay, so now we got the best of both of them. Let's listen to it in the track. That's pretty cool, but it still wasn't moving enough for me. So I thought, well, I want it to be sweeping. So I went back to the channel here where I added the reverb, and I added a EQ to it. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And in the mix. Very cool. Now, let me show you how I put that automation on there. I did it live. I practiced the motions and just did it as it was playing. First off, I just made a blank MIDI track here because I'm not going to really record anything to it. I just need to be able to record something. Then I enabled Automation Arm, which is this button right here. So that means that if I'm recording, anything I touch starts getting automated. I just hit record. I'm going to grab this. And it'll record everything. See, check it out. So now if I go back to my automation view, which is hitting the A button, you can see I've got my frequency automation here. It recorded all this stuff. It recorded my gain, like how far I had my gain up and down on the EQ. It also recorded my frequency cue as well. Now, what I'll do sometimes is I'll go ahead and play in or perform the automation in there and then listen to it back. And when I get what I like, I'll copy and paste it. So let's say I had a section here and I like this here. This is the frequency. I can take that, paste it onto that chord there. You can mess around and play a huge section and then just take the sections that you like and paste that automation there. And then you've got some cool things that are happening and they're very alive. So now I can mix and blend like the dry signal here, this one that's kind of, excited a little bit with the compressor and the saturator, and then this totally effected out one here, and I can blend them for my mix. Definitely cooler. Now, there are some built-in effects in Ableton that I think are amazing, and probably most people don't use them because they just have weird names. I don't even know what they mean. Let me show you what I'm talking about. There's this one over here called Corpus. I don't know what this thing is. But anyway, I'm going to pull it down here and put it onto my rack. I'm going to turn off the other ones so I can audition this one. Check this thing out. It just does a bunch of weird stuff. Now it's kind of jumping around a little. Let me change the waveform here, the LFO. You can do all sorts of things with this. I don't even know exactly what it's doing. You got this filter here. You've got this LFO. You can do this weird tuning thing. There's this whole thing here. Hold on, I'm gonna put this reverb on here. See what it sounds like with this reverb. Paste it onto the end. Gonna put it here. It's back like this. That's cool. Let me bring it back in the mix a little bit. I dig that. Another place to find some really cool effects in Ableton is right here. It took me a while to find this. It's under Audio Effect Rack, and then go to Performance and DJ. There's a lot of weird stuff in here, but I grabbed this DJ Tools thing, and these things are kind of like preset, like effects chains, and they kind of have these macros, like where I guess they somehow program to affect a variation of effects built within there for you to turn. I don't know if that makes any sense. Let me just show you what I'm talking about here. So you can see right here, it's got these things. It says motion rate, like modulation. Got a high pass frequency. Now, if you want to see how this is made and how they made this, you click on this button here and it shows you what's actually in here. It looks like they made actually another group within a group. Let's see, that's on, well, they got multiple ones. You got here, it says scratch, and there's a whole other group here. There's another group here. Oh my God, they've got even more. Like, look, groups within groups within groups. I learned a lot about how to do weird effects in Ableton by taking these things and deconstructing them and seeing what they did. And here's another one from the same folder of effects. If you go up from Performance and DJ, go to Modulation and Rhythmic, and there's a preset in here called Strange Creatures. This is what this one sounds like. It's doing something that's almost like turning it into a pad, which I think is really, really cool. Let's listen to it in the mix. And then, of course, there's the auto filter. I really like using this. Let me put them on the chain here, and let's just play it, see what it sounds like. Nice. I don't have to do much to this one. Let me grab that reverb again. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I like this one. Man, maybe I should have used this in the song. Hold on, let me grab my reverb. Let me copy this. Back over to this chain. I'm going to put it after that. So now that I've messed around and come up with a bunch of cool effects, let's listen to all of them and compare them. Here's what I started off with and what I had in the mix and sent to my client. Here's Corpus. Here's DJ Tools. Here's another DJ Tools setting. Auto filter. Man, that's some pretty cool stuff. I think I may like this auto filter one better than the one I originally had, so maybe I'll have to send another version to my client. But I'd be interested in hearing what you think is the best one. Bottom line is, except for this Valhalla Supermassive that I've got on a couple of them and I've just got mixed in a little bit, all of this is Ableton effects. You can go a long way. And once again, Valhalla Supermassive is a free plugin, so go ahead and download it, man. This thing's amazing, but you don't need to be going and spend a lot of money. Just dig into this effects folder over here. There's some amazing stuff up here in the effects rack. An auto filter. I mean, just start digging around and I'm sure you're going to find something that you can get really creative with and once again, be unique. Thanks for watching. All right, let's try this again. Listening to all the different effects. All right, little fix insert about the panning. Setting up the fucking effects on the keyboard. Onward.